Have you ever noticed that one person who never posts their own photos on social media? No selfies, no birthday posts, no updates. It almost feels like they vanished from the digital world. Yet, somehow, they seem more real than everyone else. But what if I told you, the people who don't post their photos online might actually understand something about human psychology that most of us don't? Because behind that silence lies confidence, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence that few ever reach. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why not posting might be one of the most powerful psychological choices you can make in today's world. So let's decode the psychology of people who don't post their photos on social media. We live in an age where everything is visible. People share their breakfast, their breakups, and even their breakdowns. Our lives have become highlight reels, a stage built for applause. But amidst this noise, there exists a small group that refuses to play the game. They scroll silently, they watch, they listen, yet they never perform. And while the world calls them private, boring, or detached, psychology calls them self-aware. Because to step back in a society obsessed with exposure is not a weakness. It's actually a quiet form of power. Let's be honest. If you didn't post your vacation, did it even happen? Well, yes, it did. You just didn't need strangers' approval to prove it. According to psychologists, people who rarely post photos tend to have a high privacy orientation, meaning they value control over how much of their identity the world gets to see. They're not anti-social, they're anti-overexposure. In a culture where validation is currency, they've learned the art of self-validation. Their sense of worth doesn't come from likes, comments, or hearts. It comes from within. And that's rare. Because when your peace no longer depends on other people's opinions, you become untouchable. But here's where it gets interesting. The same silence that protects their privacy also strengthens their psychological boundaries. They understand something most people don't. Once you share too much of yourself, you don't own it anymore. What you post becomes public property, open to judgment, distortion, and comparison. And they'd rather keep their peace than trade it for temporary attention. Most people assume those who don't post are insecure, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Psychologists describe them as having secure self-esteem, a kind of confidence that doesn't need proof. They're comfortable being unseen because their worth isn't up for negotiation. Ironically, this makes them some of the most emotionally stable people online. They don't need to announce their success to feel successful. They don't need to post a selfie to believe they're enough. And here's the twist. When you stop trying to be seen, you start to see clearly. You notice more. You feel more. You live more. Because silence sharpens perception. It's the difference between hearing the world and truly listening to it. Think about it. The loudest person in the room rarely has the most to say. Let's face it, social media runs on dopamine. Every like, every comment, every view. It's a micro hit of pleasure that conditions your brain to crave more. Before you know it, your self-worth becomes a scoreboard. You're not posting to connect anymore. You're posting to perform. And that's the trap the silent ones avoid. By staying out of the spotlight, they free themselves from the validation loop. They live their lives without the pressure to package every experience for display. They eat without photographing, laugh without recording, travel without tagging. And in that simplicity, they rediscover something precious: authentic presence. They're not living to be seen. They're living to feel alive. People who don't post often are what psychologists call internally referenced thinkers. That means they measure their worth through their own standards, not society's scoreboard. They're reflective, observant, and deeply analytical. They think before they act. And that extends to how they express themselves online. To them, silence isn't emptiness, it's depth. They don't post because they're uninterested in the game of performance. They're too busy playing the game of awareness. And here's a fascinating detail. Studies showed that those who spend less time curating their online image often experience higher levels of life satisfaction and lower anxiety. Because their happiness isn't rented from attention, it's owned by clarity. But what if their silence isn't just psychological, but also strategic? There's something magnetic about people you can't fully figure out. When everyone else is shouting for attention, the one who stays silent becomes a mystery. And mystery, in the age of oversharing, is a superpower. It creates curiosity, respect, even admiration. Why? Because what's rare becomes valuable. When you post less, your presence becomes scarce, and scarcity builds significance. People notice you more because you're not always there. It's the paradox of silence. Showing less actually makes you seen more clearly. Invisibility today is the new luxury. When you don't post your photos, you reclaim something the digital world quietly stole: your autonomy. You're no longer being tracked, judged, or compared. You own your life again. And that freedom, from comparison, from expectation, from noise, allows you to live more authentically than ever before. Because the truth is, the people who don't post aren't hiding. They're just protecting their energy, protecting their peace, protecting the parts of their life too sacred to turn into content. They're not afraid of being unseen. They're afraid of becoming unreal. So the next time you wonder why someone doesn't post their photos, don't assume they're shy, antisocial, or insecure. They might just be the ones who truly understand themselves. The ones who know that silence, in a world that can't stop shouting, is the ultimate form of strength. And maybe, just maybe, they're a reminder for the rest of us that not everything meaningful has to be shared, and not every beautiful moment needs an audience. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do in a world obsessed with being seen is to quietly disappear and start truly living. Now tell me, do you post to connect or to be seen? Think about that before your next upload. If you found this video thought-provoking, subscribe to Rehbit, where we don't just talk about people's minds, we help you understand your own.